I think, we don't start.
The link below, do you see it? Why are you watching me still? You haven't clicked the link yet. Click it. Click it. Click the link right now.
You ever heard of the last poets?
I want to say I have.
When the revolution comes, niggas will be standing on the corner eating chicken.
That's what he said.
Yeah, you have to Google that. It's called The Last Poets.
I need his paper.
It's The Last Poets.
Uh-huh.
You have to Google that and just listen. The revolutionary groups back in those days, and, they were different. It was more about intellectual pursuit and relationship to freedom. You had Frantz Fanon, Black Skin, White Mass, Wretches of the Earth, Dying Colonialism. And so all of those
Thank you.
Wretches of the Earth type people, yes, Stokely Carmichael, Red Brown, all these guys were intellectual giants.
Wow.
And so everything was about reading, everything was about studying, everything was about being able to stand on your soapbox and be able to speak elegantly about the movement and the rights. I mean, all of the great speakers we had back then. You had Rat Brown. Rat Brown, he spoke the language of the streets. Eldridge Cleaver, Huey Newton, Muhammad Ali. You had Ralph Abernathy, Hosea Williams. All of these guys were giants. These guys that attracted national attention and was able to express the feelings of what it was to be black in America. And then you had Martin Luther King, and to me, the granddaddy of them all was Malcolm X.
You think Malcolm X was a better speaker than King? Well, not better, but like he
was more profound because Malcolm was able to reach into the soul of the people on the streets. Because he'd been there, done that. He knew what it was like for a brother to get caught up in the fear of not being able to make it, but yet not knowing how to get out of it, and the only thing he can do was strike out. Malcolm understood that because he spent 15 years in jail. And out of the 15 years, he spent like 7 of them in solitary confinement where he just read everything. So every book that was mentioned in his autobiography, I went and read it.
Really?
Yeah, I read every book that he mentioned in his autobiography to try to understand him, but also try to understand my relationship with the world, my outside surroundings. Because I kind of grew up in an environment where, as a juvenile delinquent getting in trouble, I was supposed to go to the Connecticut State School for Boys, but I ended up in a private Catholic school. But it was really called the Polish Orphanage. And there was all these orphans who came from Krakow, Poland, outside of Warsaw, the capital of Poland. The Pope gave them that land because they had went through the Blitzkrieg when the Nazis attacked Poland. And so they were bombed out. And so the nuns were running and they brought all these orphans. The Pope gave them the 67 acres of land in New Britain, Connecticut. And so they had all these Polish orphans there, but the nuns couldn't sustain it, so they started taking in state wards. And so they had like 200 Polish kids, and I was the first state ward. I was the only African American there among a group of 200 kids, all spoke with a Polish accent, learning English. And I went there, and the nuns fell in love with me. Now you have to remember, this 1958, 59, this is the turning of the civil rights movement. It just began to rise. And so these nuns never been around a black person. They watched us on television getting hosed, dogs sick, and they empathized with us. They would pray for something better to happen in the country where all people would be considered equal, and I show up.
Wow.
And the nuns fell in love with me.
Wow.
So I became there. I'm 8 years old. That's the kind of trouble I was in.
At 8 years old?
Yeah, so I showed up there. So here I am there. So I became their little chocolate baby.
Oh.
My name was William. My family called me Bill, but the nuns called me Little Willie.
Wow.
And they would rub my head. I mean, they just loved me. So they were determined to save my soul, my dark soul. Because they relate that dark with being black. And, yeah, so they were determined. So they poured themselves into me educationally, musically. I was studying Van Cliburn and the Tchaikovsky opener for Liszt, Chopin, Schopenhauer, Mozart, Bach.
Wow.
Tchaikovsky. We would go to Leonard Bernstein's Children's Theater at the Philharmonic down in New York City.
Wow.
We go there twice a year. We would go to Yankee Stadium twice a summer, at the beginning of the season, at the end of this, towards the end of the season. I mean, they just poured themselves educationally. Sister Ignatius made sure I knew geography. At one point, I knew all the capitals of all of the countries that was known there. Since then, seeing the breakup of the Soviet Union and everything. But I knew the capitals of all the states. I mean, I still speak Latin.
How long were you there for?
From 8 to 16 years old.
So you had early world exposure. Because even though you were in New York, they exposed you to a lot of the world.
Yeah, they took us places. Sister Damian, which I would consider, as your wife was saying about a life coach,
right?
I would consider her my life coach because she was determined to teach me all about classical music, the reading the classics, Dante, Goloff, Schopenhauer, and I just read everything. And so her whole thing was to teach me the arts.
Right.
The concerts, concertos, and operas, and she just poured herself into me. And so her thing was to make sure I had every educational advantage that any kid would have. But I remember she used to always tell me, never forget your people.
She told you that?
Yeah, she was a big bosom woman from Poland, but she used to always tell me, never forget your people. So in the classical music, she would play Scott Joplin, Miriam Anderson.
Some of these people, I have no idea who they are.
Yeah, Andre Watts. Andre Watts was a protege, a prodigy. He was a protege of Leonard Bernstein. Leonard Bernstein had helped school Van Cliburn, who won the Tchaikovsky opening in Moscow. And his next person that he was training up was a young African American named Andre Watts. You can Google all this stuff. And so she used to make sure I listened to all that music. So I would have to listen to black classicals. These were black people that were opera singers. Laura Teen Price, these were all opera singers.
Wow.
And she, whenever anything came on television that was related to black history, she made sure I watched it or seen it.
Wow.
So they poured themselves into me.
That's big. That's good. Like
that was a foundation. That was a foundation,
Wow.
and the foundation that they poured into me, and the foundation that they helped me with, helped me in '97 to be able to turn my life around, because all what they had put in me began to come back. I'm 48 years old when I came off the streets of September 21st, 1997.
I wanted to ask you a question about truth, and then I want to get into where you're from, your background a little bit. So you're from New York then?
No, I'm from Hartford, Connecticut.
Oh, you're from Connecticut.
Right.
Cold.
Cold.
Connecticut is cold.
Yeah, it's cold.
Really cold. I don't see how you did it.
I don't either.
And then coming to Florida, so you were all the way up there, and then you come all the way down here to Florida.
When I first came to Florida, I was labor pool because I couldn't work a regular job because people were chasing me. I was working a labor pool job, and I think we were down there by Daytona. I was working on a roof, right?
Oh, jeez, a roof?
Florida. Yeah, so but it was 100 and something in the shade, and I had these bumps all over me. So I went to the hospital. Because I didn't know what was happening. I thought, man, I said, where they coming from when I got to the hospital? And so sitting in the emergency room, and so the doctor come in and asked me what's wrong. I showed him all the bumps and everything, and so he just looked at me, called a couple of nurses, and they all fell out laughing. I didn't know, that was the first time in my life I ever had a heat rash.
Yep.
And so, you know, I said, man, it might not be serious to you, but it's life and death to me. Man, I could have never been down. You know, I've been to Florida, but I came in December. And the first time I visited, I brought back a branch of oranges on a branch.
Wow.
And I had some in the bag, and so I showed the guy, and they said, yo, Slim, where you been? I said, I was down in Florida. Come on. You know how we talk.
Yeah.
Come on, Negro. You ain't been down in no Florida. Yeah? So I showed him the oranges. Man, you could have went and got that at the store. So I said, on the branch? So that's how I proved that, you know, it wasn't going outside of Hartford. They just couldn't conceive of somebody, you know, you was either from there, but you just don't go there to visit. And remember, I'm in the projects. And so this is not something you think about, branching out, you know, broaden your horizons.
Right.
And so that's the reason why it makes it so hard. And that's the pushback I gave you about if people know. A lot of times people don't want to know. They don't want to take that step out. Man, it's scary to take a step out into the unknown.
Right. Which is a perfect segue. I'm glad you brought it there, because it's a perfect segue to what I was going to ask you about. Because I was going to ask you about truth. And being confronted with truth. Not in such an aggressive way, but just coming face to face with any truth. It could be a spiritual truth, a personal truth about yourself, revelation about yourself. Because I know for me, like, sometimes it's tough for me, because I get into situations, and I'm 35, so ever since I turned 30, I've been on this, like, journey, like, really taking life a little bit more seriously. Married with 3 children, so, you know, there's a lot of growth to be expected from all of that. And sometimes, like, I'll put myself in situations to where, you know, it challenges me to grow. And I'll confront different truths. And sometimes the truth that I confront, it really just goes against what I've been taught or learned or what I thought I knew. And now I gotta, like, reapply this new truth, you know, to life. So I wanted to ask you about, you know, confronting truth and a person just coming face to face with that reality, you know, and having to accept that, because you being a pastor, you know, you teach faith. And a lot of truths that people, especially in this area, they have to come to grips with, it can be difficult at times. So I guess I want to hear what you think about that.
Truth is scary. And when there's an old saying, the truth hurts. And that's the reason why people run away from it. Strange thing happened this morning. I get frustrated and aggravated because I'm all about moving on, and I think I'm always most of the time, I think I'm going in the right direction. And a lot of times I'm not. I'm just frustrated and aggravated that people aren't on board. But my daughter told me this morning about some of the things that I do when I get frustrated with her. And she said it sounds like I'm flipping out on her and everything. And I thought about it, you know, and she's right. Sometimes the worst thing you could give a person when they're not ready to handle it is knowledge. Because knowledge forces you to face reality. And that's why the Bible says, in all your understanding, get what? Get knowledge. And so in all the knowledge, get understanding. So once you're into that phase of understanding, the challenge is, what am I going to do about it? So that's the truth. Because now you're at that fork in the road. You either go left or you go right. There's no other alternatives. You can't go down the middle. And I think that most people don't want to face the truth because it's so scary. It's so scary when you have to look in the mirror and you see yourself like I was when I was on drugs, that all of my problems was because of me. I could have easily said, well, my father left us when we were young. I grew up in a dysfunctional house. I lived in the projects. I have bad examples. I mean, there is an innate thing that all of us know what's right and what's wrong.
Yep.
So at some point, you have to face that. And truth is scary. So even when I approach people here in the community, it's getting a person out of their comfort zone to be able to face the truth, which is challenging because they know that they have adapted, become accustomed to where they are. And so they don't want to move.
Yeah.
Why should I move? Because they look at everything that is allowing them to escape the responsibility of facing reality.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get up every morning and go to work, pay my bills and budget my money.
Yeah.
I'm going to stay right here because I'm being taken care of. And so that's the truth.
Yeah.
So that's their truth. When the reality of it is that they don't have to be in that position, but am I willing to face that challenge
Yeah.
of being able to get by to get around myself to accept the responsibility.
Yeah.
Our biggest enemy, T.D. Jakes once preached a sermon, say, the enemy in me. Because that's the biggest problem.
Yep.
And even as a person of faith, as a pastor, I know that when the enemy comes to tempt a person,
Yeah.
he never tempts them outside of what's in them. He only tempts them.
Yeah, I got a fist bump on that one.
Yeah, he only tempts them what's in them.
Wow.
So whatever's in you, that's what he brings to you because he knows what you like, he knows what you dislike. So what you like is what he brings. If you like eating,
Yeah.
he brings food to you. Because what he wants to do, and it doesn't take much to pervert a person into going in the direction that the enemy wants to take you.
Yeah.
If you like women, he brings women. If you like cars, he brings cars. If you like having money, he brings those situations that allow you to have money. If you like food, let's go to the buffet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Golden Corral, my favorite place. I only weigh 400 pounds. So, I mean, he gives you what you want.
Yeah.
And he gives you what's in you. And so, to break that cycle, you have to face the truth.
Yeah.
It's what I like.
Yeah.
And so, biblically, when you read the Bible is always confronting you about truth.
Yeah.
To face the truth. And so people say they want to follow Jesus, but the first rule that Jesus says that you have to deny yourself. And the first law of nature is self-preservation.
Yep.
So how can that be the first law of nature for me? And yet I'm going to deny that. And after you deny yourself, then the next step is now you have to pick up your cross
Yep.
and come after me. So those are two double whammies right in a row that prevents a lot of people from being able to become followers of Christ because most people want a Christ that they can compromise with. And we say it this way, God knows my heart.
Yep.
So he understands. He knows my heart. Yeah, he knows your heart.
Yeah, he did.
I know your heart. It's obvious. I tell by your behavior.
Yeah.
So, truth is scary.
Yeah.
And so when you find a person that's truthful, when you find a person that has that kind of honesty, the relationship that you develop with them becomes so meaningful because there's such a sincerity there that you don't feel trapped in it. You're not afraid to say what you need to say. So fear doesn't enter the picture. That's why it's love has no fear.
Yeah.
Fear doesn't enter the picture because there's a freedom when you're able to have truth.
And that's big. And the God knows my heart. My wife knows. I'm pretty sure she made a face under that mask because she knows how I feel about that scripture. Because a lot of people say, and it's just like, yeah, God does know your heart, and Scripture says the heart of man is deceitful and wicked. So if you want to talk
who
about
knows
God knows your heart,
but God.
so, I mean, that's a cop out. So, I want to get into your passion, your ministry specifically, what you do, and just to give to people a little back history as to why I brought you on my platform. I'm always on social media, looking for interesting people, just people that I feel would be dope and add to the platform conversations I want to have and and deliver to my viewers. So I was scrolling on Facebook and I came across, it was 2 videos that you did. One was talking about Mercy Drive Ministries, and what really caught my eye to that was your quality. Because just being in Central Florida and just looking at a lot of different things that people are doing, sometimes it just lacks that quality. So you keep scrolling. Granted, it could be a great thing, but it just doesn't catch the eye, to be honest. But what you did caught my eye, and I was like, what is this? And the fact that I didn't know about what you were doing, I was like, I got to be informed about this. I got to know what he's doing. And then another one I saw, you were talking about BLM. What is Black Lives Matter? Like,
right.
What it actually, and I love the way you put that too. Like, that was really good. So that's what attracted me to you. And then I reached out to you. We get on the phone. We had an amazing conversation. So I guess just talk a little bit about, your ministry, what it is that you do, and I guess why you do it too, because for you to have that focus to just say, hey, listen, we're just going to focus on Mercy Drive. I kind of want to isolate my focus here. I feel like it's a great thing, because I feel like a lot of ministries can kind of like have this world view, and you're trying to get there, but you deny a little bit about what's going on right in your front door. So, and you took that front door, you took your front porch on. You're like, this is where we at. This is what I'm focusing on.
There's a scene in the Bible, Jesus about to ascend into heaven.
Uh-huh.
And Jesus tells the disciples that he wants them to wait for him, because they're going to be endured with power. But he tells them, you will be endured with power to bear witness unto me here in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the outermost parts of the world. So Saul, who later became Paul, wrote 1/3 of the Bible, that when he began to persecute the church, the disciples scattered. The apostles stayed in Jerusalem.
Wow.
Because that's where Jesus told them to stay. The disciples went all around the world running from Saul, who later became Paul, because he was persecuting the church. That's why Saul went to Damascus to chase him down. But the disciples were right in Jerusalem. So I kept wondering, why didn't Saul get the disciples, who was right there in the capital, the heart of Judaism?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't God's plan. That's the reason why Jesus told him to stay in Jerusalem.
Right.
When we first came here, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, back then it was low-income housing.
Right.
Today it's affordable housing. There was 6 of them here, complexes.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we quickly saw was that the poverty of the spirit, not the poverty of the housing, the poverty of food, but the poverty of spirit.
Right.
People were, they were resigned to living in these projects. It was no means of making attempts to get out. And the city wasn't encouraging it.
Mm-hmm. We
had you on the west side, you stay there.
Yeah.
We already had Paramore and all these other different pockets where black people live.
Right.
So our whole thing was, what could we possibly do to make a difference in the community? And going along with how I was raised, because I came up through the civil rights movement, I actually saw black leaders make a difference.
Wow.
I actually saw black politicians actually work for the people.
Wow.
So I knew what that looked like.
Yeah.
But I didn't see it here.
Mm.
And so I wanted to make a difference right where God had placed us. Now, we were at Restore Orlando, where we had a full-size gym, sanctuary, 12 classrooms. We had 3 buildings on our campus, and we owned all the property around the church.
You owned it?
The church owned everything.
Yeah.
So we own almost 3 blocks of property.
Wow.
Full-size gymnasium, sanctuary, 12 classrooms. We had a youth center, a faith. We had 3 buildings on our campus, and they asked my wife and I to come over here.
Wow.
And it was just this one building, and you can see the picture when you leave what the property looked like.
Wow.
So our prayer was a fleece out to God. I'm basically in a white denomination, so my wife and I prayed and said, if they're willing to give us $250,000, we'll take that as a sign of confirmation. So, big numbers.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, there's no way they're
Is
going
that
to give
gonna
us no
happen?
$250,000 to come to Mercy Drive. So in my mind, I was all set to stay right where I was
Yeah.
at. But when I got down there, my leaders, like a bishop, or we call him district superintendent, was drawing pictures on a napkin. He said, if you and your wife go there to Mercy Drive, the district will support you anywhere from $65 to $95 a square foot. So I said, well, what's the bottom line on that? He says anywhere from $250,000 to $500,000. And I went
The
like
low
this.
end was what you wanted.
Yeah, I'm sitting there at Bubbaloo's on Florida Avenue in Lakeland, Florida. I'm like, oh man, God, I don't want to go to Mercy Drive. Went home and told my wife, she said, oh, we should have prayed for $1 million. But that's how we got here. So I knew that something was in the works, but I didn't know what.
Yeah.
And so my wife had a vision of seeing a whole bunch of kids. This is June 23rd, 2003. And so I just started networking. I went to Winter Park Playhouse, and we had a partnership with them, partnership with United Methodist Church up by Aloma on the east, on that side of town.
Yeah.
I just started partnering with everybody, First Baptist, anybody that would partner with us. I told them what we envisioned, what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that I was learning and developing an elevator message. If you got on the elevator with me, within 5 minutes, I told you our vision, mission, and dream on what we wanted from the ministry. And people were just listening. Oh, God, that's all he talk about. Mercy Drive, Mercy Drive. And it got to the point where people began to say, well, what can we do to help?
Wow.
So our thing was this. My wife and I was, how do we help our people become independent where they're able to determine their own destiny and be able to sustain themselves without depending on government support?
Yeah.
And so everything we do, we try to put our community in the position where our community is able to take care of itself.
Yeah.
People can take care of themselves. People have enough skills, job training, or whatever the case may be, that allows them to determine the future of their family without have to worry about some caseworker coming in and looking under the bed for men's shoes and going through the closet and always having to stand by the mailbox waiting on their food stamp check or the Section 8. Section 8, they don't even see that, so they don't even worry about that. But all of the other assistance they get, they have to go to the mailbox. And so our thing was, how do we help our people get out of that? How do we help them to get away from it?
Yeah.
So we start bringing in programs like Jobs Partnership, which is a 12-week biblical-based employment program.
Yeah.
We work with Grace Medical, which is a medical center for the working poor or the uninsured, where they help them to be able to get free medical care.
Wow.
And so we just started developing programs that was geared towards that one single philosophy, working towards sustainability and independence for the community and for the residents, our people in the community. Let me give you an illustration. I ended up on the board of directors of the Coalition, Grace Medical, Habitat for Humanity, just working with a lot of different organizations. I ended up on the board of directors, and everybody knew my story, that I had been on drugs and, 92 to 97, and they heard my testimony, but they felt as though that I had something to say.
Yeah.
So with Grace Medical, we knew that we had the highest rate of diabetes in the city.
Mercy Drive has that?
Pine Hill's there, but Mercy Drive is deeply affected by people, a high rate of diabetes, and people don't even know it. And that's the silent killer in our community.
Yep.
Nationwide, hypertension is a result of diabetes. And so one of the things that we did, we're working with them, they wanted to have a program. They got a grant from United Way of Florida. So they said, well, Pastor, how can we develop this? So we went and got the churches, and we asked the churches, look, they're going to come in, they're going to do the diabetes testing for free, and the person will be able to get free medication, and they will be able to get a doctor.
Wow.
It's all for free, but the only thing we want your church to do is just to cover the 5 blocks around your church, just 5.
As
Our
far
church,
as like what, cover them how?
just door to door, giving out the flyers for the testing.
Okay, got you.
It's just your 5 blocks, and our church will come and help you do it.
Yeah.
And so what we did was get the church here. If you cover 5 blocks, we were overlapping each other.
Yeah.
So the community was being covered. And so we told them, you know, the flyers would be designed with your church as presenting this program. And then we asked the pastors, would you like to have your picture on it, or should it be a picture of your church?
Right.
And so, you know, that was the emphasis for them to go along with it. So it came out of their church, their ministry. And then the Grace Medical would go there and do all the testing.
Wow.
As a result of their church presenting this diabetes program in the community. So we were able to make that work. And so that's what I mean about networking, being creative enough to find a way to make something happen. God will provide, but we have to do the work.
Yeah.
And I heard a story about that. A guy said he was transferred to this church that was run down, broken up. And he stayed there day and night fixing it up. So people would walk in and say, oh my God, this church is beautiful. Look what God has done. This church is just fabulous. Look at it, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And oh man, God is so good. And the pastor looked at the people and he said, you should have seen it when he had it. The whole idea, God will give you.
Right.
But you got to do the work.
You got to work it. And that's something that me and my wife talk about a lot. Like people just praying and like hoping and that God does it. It's just like He'll empower you. He'll do it with you. He'll be alongside of you. But you got to get your hands in there and get dirty.
And that's part of the provision.
Yeah.
You work in it.
Yeah. You talked a little bit about the boards that you were a part of, and we can touch back on that a little bit. But I wanted to say this, just as you're talking, I'm listening to you, about your message and what you want to do for the community. Not to say that God isn't, or faith isn't, you know, a motivation for you, because I believe it is. You're a pastor. But I like that your message is not just, oh, we want to see these people saved, we want to see them come to God, which is important. I
which
know
is
it's
the
a passion.
foundation of everything
Right.
else.
But on top of that, alongside, partner with it or whatever, you're like, we want to get these people from relying on government assistance to sustain for themselves. So to me, what I'm hearing and what you're presenting is truly discipleship and direction, you know, purpose building within the individual, because I believe, I'm from the mindset of, if a person is going to sustain for themselves and thrive, I truly believe that that is deeply connected into purpose, because that's how people are able to thrive, when their why is cemented within themselves. You're able to put them anywhere and they're going to thrive, you know, because their why is deeply rooted. But I like the way that you talk about that, and I feel, to me, like churches lack that per se, not intentionally, but we're just taught that faith is the answer to everything, which truly is. But if I take this faith, if you give me faith, I go to your church, you save me, or I get saved at your church, it's just like, where do I go now? You know, and a lot of people don't know or won't know necessarily where to go to get the resource. I mean, they'll dig it out the mud eventually, but I feel like if you come to them and it's just like, hey, boom, this, okay, now, are you employed, or you're on this, we have a program to help you get out of there. We have a program for this. And I feel like that is clutch. That's key. So Am I hearing that correctly, or like
No,
where are you at with that?
No, you are. The foundation of transformation,
Right.
it starts in the heart. The heart recognizes the fact that, that there is something wrong.
Right.
We call it conviction. Once you're convicted about your life and relationship, that you're not making right choices or right decisions,
Right.
that's what you have to deal with. That's the truth that you're being confronted with. You're being confronted with you. Once you're able to get by that, that becomes the foundation, and then the foundation is building on the Word of God. Because as a Christian, if I truly believe that greater is He in me than he that's out in the world, I have to live that out when I'm faced or confronted by temptation. If I believe that all things are possible with Him,
Right.
I have to live that out and make that attempt, trusting and believing that all things are possible, or I am strengthened by Him or
Right.
through Him. So this becomes the foundation. Once you help people to have a foundation that allows them to stand, then the transformation process, or what we call regeneration, can begin to move forward. And that moving forward is realizing that, okay, I have a gift and I have a talent,
Right.
but I have to have the courage to exercise it. So one of the things when people come to the altar, and you have to understand this, people come to the altar because they're in need.
Yep.
And so what happens is they come to the altar always asking God to do something for them. And so, I mean, that's every prayer.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
That's
too.
every prayer. Bless my food because, I'm hungry. Okay, lay me down to sleep. I don't want to die tonight,
Right.
So it's always the request and the petition going out to God, asking for something.
Right.
But when you begin to understand that what you're asking for, He has already given it to you. You woke up this morning. I posted something this morning. It said, boom, boom. Every minute, boom, boom. 60 minutes, boom, boom. Every hour, boom, boom. Every 24 hours, boom, boom. A day, every day. Every day leads to a week. Every week leads to a month. Every month leads to a year. This heart keeps beeping, boom, 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 boom. And we don't even think about it. You drive down the road, your heart never enters your mind.
No, it doesn't.
You don't even think about it, but just imagine this is a machine that's in you that keeps you alive, but we don't really even think about it. And so when you start giving attention towards God, God responds, because that's his promise.
Right.
But His promise said that tithes and offering, He said, bring your tithes and offering to me and test me, try me, and see not if I will open the windows of heaven. But the point about it is that I have to get by the money.
Right.
I need my
You gotta
money.
get
I
that
want my money.
Yeah.
And so people have a hard time stepping out to operate in that zone of trusting God.
Yeah.
Because it goes beyond their ability to be able to do it. And that's the reason why we need the leading and the guiding of the Holy Spirit to lead and guide us into all truth.
Yeah.
Now the question is, do I want to be led? Do I want to be guided?
Yeah.
And it becomes very clear as you go down the road what you're facing confronted with. Do I want to be led? Do I want to be guided? When I came off the street September 21st, 1997, the church was supposed to give us a house, but we ended up in this little place. But I didn't have a car, so a guy donated a car from Northland Church. Dr. Joel Hunter got me a car from this charity car place. I'm driving down the street, right where I used to hang out, right on the corner of Cayley and Westmore. Cayley and OBT used to be 7-Eleven. It's called Quick Stop now.
Okay.
I drive down there, I'm driving down the street. I'm a minister. Got my local license, headed towards my district license. I'm driving down the street, and I saw this woman, and I'll never forget this, in a red dress, voluptuous.
Yeah.
I'm driving, I drive by her. So you kind of look over in the rearview mirror. So I just looked because I wanted to see her face.
Yeah.
Because I saw her from behind, and I said, whew, man, that girl got it going on. It was just like rolly. So I looked in the mirror. I'm driving down the street. I looked in the dashboard rearview mirror. I found myself that as I was driving down the street looking in the rearview mirror, she got smaller and smaller and smaller. And then it dawned on me. I watched this woman, didn't even see her, couldn't see her.
Right.
But my thoughts kept telling me, man, look in the mirror. I just trying to spot her.
Right.
But the whole idea, what I'm saying is that was in me.
Yeah.
And the Holy Spirit said, what are you going to go all the way downtown still looking?
Right.
But it was just a thing,
Yeah.
because it was in you. So you have to face these truths in order to get to the realization that, okay, change has to be made.
Yeah.
And so, but you have to bring people into the knowledge that, okay, here's where you are. You need to be saved. Once a person recognizes that they have to be saved, they accept Christ or have God in their life,
Right.
then they start making those steps. And as they make those steps in relationship to what they know. Nobody gets saved knowing everything. It's the reason why the Bible says, let every man work out his own salvation with fear and trembling. Let every man work out his own salvation with fear and trembling. So it's something that has to be worked out.
Yeah.
It's something that you have to put an effort into it, and it's something that you have to be conscious of on a daily basis. That's why Paul said, I die daily.
I wanted to go into your salvation story, but before we go there, I want to talk a little bit about the boards that you served on, because you served on a few boards.
Yeah.
How did you go about connecting with those, and just talk a little bit about your networking ability? Because when we were on the phone, I was already thinking like this man is extremely interesting, and I could just listen to you just talk because of your storytelling ability. But one thing that we spoke about on the phone was just networking, and I was just thinking to myself like, this guy is extremely strong at networking, especially being a pastor. I believe that that's extremely vital. Even what we're talking about off air with growing your ministry, the outside resources are key to that. So I guess just talk a little bit about the boards and how you were able to network into that, and just being confident enough and brave enough sometimes, in some cases, because I'm pretty sure networking, it can be fearful.
I don't think it's fearful as we think it is. I think it's fearful from the perspective when you don't have the confidence or you're not sure of yourself. Let me give you this down. I served on the board of Habitat for Humanity for Central Florida, for Orlando, excuse me.
Right.
I'm sitting at a restaurant, one of those restaurants with no prices on the menu.
Yeah.
Which I wasn't scared because I wasn't paying for it. They invited me to talk to me about being on the board of directors. And so the whole idea of Habitat for Humanity is that they help people, put them in the position to get a house.
Right.
And what they use in terms of helping the person has to put sweat equity in it. But Habitat for Humanity is basically a middleman. They help a family get it, and then they line that family up with the bank. They find a partner, the bank, the financial institution that hook them up. So Habitat for Humanity sits right in the middle, and so they end up becoming basically, when they develop a project, facilities, a complex, they end up collecting the rent, making mortgage payments for the people. They paid it through them to the bank. So they end up becoming basically a mortgage company, but they wanted to continue to build a relationship that once a person got the house, they wanted to develop programs that were continually to keep that relationship with that client.
Right.
Budgeting, how to take care of your house, how to repair your house, all of these different things. But that wasn't working out, so they were asking me, well, how do we go about it?
Yeah.
So he said, but we're trying to make a difference. We're trying to do something. We don't. And basically, they didn't know what to do. So we're sitting there at the restaurant, they had a glass of water, and on the bottom of the water is slices of cucumbers. So I hold the water up and I say, you know, somebody from Mercy Drive came here right now and saw this. You know, first thing they said, what? Yo, Red, what's up with the vegetables in the water?
Yeah.
I said, because, you know, we eat our vegetables.
Right.
We don't soak them in water. But they understood the message.
Right.
So the whole thing is that I think I bring something to the table because I know my community and I know my people. And I think that the people I deal with at the coalition, the Christian Service League downtown or Central, Habitat for Humanity, Grace, I know my people.
Yeah.
And I think that when people from these various organizations meet me, they feel confident that I have a knowledge and experience that will help them to understand.
Yeah.
And to give you an even better example, after Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Black Lives Matter, I was inundated with being on Zoom meetings and meeting with different churches, help us to understand.
Wow.
And so my thing with when they ask that, is that the first thing, because you can't teach diversity.
Nope.
I can't make you like me. I can't make you sit next to me. I can't make you want to work next to me and be okay with it.
Yeah.
That's something that has to happen within you to want to make it happen. So one of the things I tell them is this, that you can't teach diversity. It's all built on relationship.
That's true.
You can't come in and pass out a sandwich, a bag of chips and a soda and pat somebody on the head and then go back to your church and want to talk about your experience in the black community.
Wow.
It doesn't work like that.
Wow.
And so a lot of churches come in and what they have survey, it's that one day where the whole church go out and they clean up somebody's street.
Yeah.
Or they go out and pass out sandwiches and everything, and then they all meet back at the church. Tell us how you feel about that.
Wow.
I brought my son with me. I wanted to teach my son how to give back. You go down there where the homeless people are being fed on Thanksgiving and Christmas time, there's like 4 Christians around every homeless person. And the homeless people, and I know because I live there, is frustrated because you got all these people around them, so you game them. Ooh, I prayed.
Wow.
What did you pray for? I told Jesus I need a place to stay for the night, and I just need $20. If I get $20, you know, my boss said he's going to start me Monday. And I done it.
Yeah.
I sat around Christians and told Christians that I need a place to stay, and could you help me get a place to stay, because tomorrow I start work. My boss told me that he's going to give me advance that's going to help me to get a place for the week. And at the end of the week, I save most of my money out of my check, and I keep building until I'm able to get a place. The first thing they do, well, where you want to stay? Bring them right to Vernon Hotel.
Wow.
Somewhere on OBT.
Yeah.
Get the place, and then rent out the room for $5 to every brother that want to come in and take a hit.
Wow.
I make it $5. You know, you come in, and most brothers come in and got a hit, 20-cent piece, got a girl with them, and they need the room. I rent it out for $5, $10.
Wow.
So you know, it's just knowing what people go through and being able to relate that to people who can make a difference.
Yeah.
And what you know in relationship to what people are going through. People who have the influence.
Right.
So you can tell a donor, the donor told me one time, well, William, you didn't ask me for a check. Well, the check wouldn't solve the problem. But if you call your friends up at those construction companies and say, hey, can you hire somebody? That's putting the person on the right direction.
Wow, so it's not about that check.
No, it's not about the money, and it's not about, because a lot of people think the check is the easiest thing for them to do.
Throw some money at it, yeah.
Yeah, you just throw money at it. That's what the government does. But building a relationship is the hardest part, because now you're dealing with somebody that don't look like me.
Yeah.
They're not from the same neighborhood as me. And I have to, most of the time, the people that are up here have to go down to their level.
Yeah.
and dig out a relationship to understand what they go through. And so my being involved in it helped them to understand that aspect of how do I make a difference.
Which is good.
Yeah.
And I think having you there, especially where your heart is at and what you want to do, it works. It's good for you. So I guess just talk a little bit about some Mercy Drive movement. That's the name of so just talk a little bit about Mercy Drive movement to the people that aren't familiar with it, might not be familiar with your movement, and just where you at now and where you want to go with it. Because I'm pretty sure, like from the conversation we had, you have things that you have in place, but I know that there's so much more that you want to do, and even how they can support and help what you have going on as well.
Well, we don't put out a lot of feelers about financing anything. It just happens.
Right.
But the umbrella, it's really Mercy Drive Ministries, but Mercy Drive Ministries, the outreach arm of the church.
Right.
Most people will support a 501c3 that's not connected with the church. So that's how you are able to get the funding that's needed without them upsetting any of their attitudes about church. Well, I'm not going to support no church, but I'll support your ministry.
Right.
Which is the church. The church is the umbrella. Everything flows from the church, top to bottom. It all comes out of the Bible. It all comes out of our understanding of what we believe God has called us to do.
Right.
Under that is Mercy Drive Ministries. Under Mercy Drive Ministry is Mercy Drive Little Achievers Learning Academy.
Oh, wow.
Under that comes Mercy Drive Movement. And so these two function. The church is three pillars: Mercy Drive Ministry, the church, Mercy Drive Ministry, and everything that stems from that. We have an education, which we work in partnership with Jobs Partnership, which is that biblical-based employment program, 12 weeks. Now, the partnership has 56 companies that are attached to it that support them. And so at the end of 12 weeks of study, which is biblical-based, the biblical principles of employment, you were created to work, and all of, the ethics, the principles. So these companies, when they see you go through a 12-week consistent, faithfully be in the program, your chances of getting hired are far better than if you walked off the streets.
Yeah.
Attached to that program is what we call on-ramp programs. If you don't get a job, but you want to become a nurse, we can get you into the hospital where you might start out in housekeeping, but as you are there at the hospital, they open up the doors for phlebotomy classes.
Wow.
And that's just taking temperature and x-rays and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that door is open, and if you want to continue to move forward, we have graduates that went on to nursing degrees.
Wow.
So you can open up the door where you can end up at Valencia School of Construction Management, where you learn construction from the ground up. Wow. Hopefully that if you stay with it, you can end up with your own company.
Yeah.
And as a minority, all minority companies that are participating as a certified minority company, all public money have to have at least, now my understanding in this state is 23.3% minority participation. So for every dollar that's spent by the government, count federal, county, state, city, 23 cents, 23.3% of it has to go to a minority. So you try to help brothers to become certified as a minority. Right. Most brothers are discouraged because of the amount of paperwork and all of the requirements, so they don't go through it. So they continue to operate their business under the tree.
Yeah.
Rather than get all the procedures that are necessary for you to get it, the insurance, bonding.
Yeah.
And so half of the guys don't even know this. So you try to help them to put them in the position. So there's a lot of ways of helping people to become sustainable on their own, to determine their own destiny. But it goes back recognizing the truth, and it goes back, I have to work.
I have to work.
And so, our ministry is completely committed to seeing people get saved,
Right.
And then seeing people transform their lives as a result of what God is doing in their life.
Man.
And so as that door opens, we try to be there to just help them. And so it's a hard thing.
Yeah.
And it hurts when you are working with people, you see them headed down the path of destruction.
Yeah.
And they don't listen. I say this to every young girl in the church. If a young man's not willing to wait, kick him to the curb. And I tell all the young men, become a man before you become a father.
Whew.
So the point is that they hear you,
Yeah.
but they're not listening. So you watch a young lady, 16, 17, have her first baby. Now she's gravitating towards a man because she wants somebody in her life to help.
Yeah.
So she thinks the only way to be with him is to lay down, have another child. Now she got 2, still no man in her life. So, you know, young men don't know what they're doing. They just want to satisfy their nature.
Yeah.
I mean, I was that way.
Yeah.
So I tell the girls, I say, listen, I already know what they're saying to you. How you know, Pastor? Because I tell the same lies. I tell the same lies. Girl, you the finest thing in this whole school. I only like you. I don't care about the rest of those girls, but you know, so, but you have to try to wake them up. You have to tell them the truth, and that's what they want to hear.
Yeah.
Whether they accept it or not, but that's what they want to hear. That's what they need to hear. Now that you have to confront them where they have to face the truth.
Yeah. What you're saying, and that's why I wanted to have this conversation with you on film, because everything that you're saying and that you're doing, not even just saying, what you're doing within your church, that is true ministry. I truly believe that, you know, just based off of what I've seen, you know, what you're doing is true ministry, is true discipleship, is really helping a person. Because yes, I care about your soul, and I want your soul. I care about where you spend eternity. But on top of that, as well, layered next to it, because you're not in eternity yet. You're not there yet.
Right.
You're living this life experience, and life experiences can lead you to eternity, or it can lead you from eternity. Because life is tough. We're all living it. It's not. It's a process of time, and time can sometimes be generous, and it cannot be so generous.
Right.
The scripture says it rains on the just and unjust. So you may be having a good year, but you're going to encounter issues. You may be having a good day, a good week. Life is going to happen, because life always happens. And I believe that what you're doing is amazing.
Let me just say this. I told the church one time, we live in our relationship with God. We live, one day is, thank you, Jesus. We're just so grateful. The next day is, Lord, have mercy. We live right in the middle.
In the middle of it.
We live right in the middle because, and I tell people this, you get saved here, and this is the reason why we call it a journey. You're saved, but you live on earth. So our responsibility is to be able to show people how to live on earth that will allow them to be with the God at the end of the destination. And Jesus said it this way: broad is the way and wide is the gate that leadeth to destruction. It's a wide path. Then he says, straight is the gate and narrow is the way that leadeth to righteousness. Then he says this on top of it: and few there be that will even find it. So all the people we see that's running around and prophesizing and television and everything aren't necessarily going to be the ones that we're going to see if we get there ourselves.
Right.
Because straight is the gate And narrow is the way that leadeth to righteousness. And Jesus said, few there be that will even find it. And one of the things I know a lot of times when I'm doing right, because I can feel the pressure swimming upstream. You understand? Yeah, because everybody's headed in this way. And I'm just, and if you ever walked in the Disney or those places where you're walking and all the traffic's going, you do everything you can to avoid it.
Yeah.
Excuse me. It's like, finally you just want to stop. Let me go over here and sit down and wait till the traffic go by first. But it never stops. Yeah. So, you know, our whole thing about ministry, and even there are a handful of people that I can trust, that I can go to and ask them, and if they can't do it, they just can't do it. Right. And I always believe that God's going to provide another way for us to be able to get the funding that's needed. Right. And I think that we handle our finances, we steward our finances very closely, where we have listen, when I say that we have everything, I really mean that. Everything that we need, we have it. Right. And I'm just good. It's a simple thing. Yeah. But my daughter came home and she said, "I got good news, Dad." I said, "What's that?" She said, "I don't know how many rolls, but it's like 60 rolls a case." Yeah. So we bought 2 cases, one for the house and one for the church. But we already have toilet paper here, so we don't run out of stuff. It's a simple thing, but we buy in abundance. We have a Sam card, a Costco card, a Restaurant Depot card. So, I mean, we're kind of prepared. We have a fund that if anything happened in this community where somebody break a window, when we first came here, they stole the electric box off the side of the building. Our first Saturday, one guy used to be across the street, come and steal all the light bulbs. Wow! But the whole idea is that being able to foresee these things as a leader, as a pastor, and then provide for it. And it's almost the same. You see that in David providing everything for Solomon. Yeah. And so I think that's just the responsibility of leadership. Right. And following the example of those who already went before you, learning from their mistakes and learning from how they benefit from it. Wow. So there are a lot of pastors I sing that fleece the sheep and everything, and you can learn from that. Yeah. And so, you know, to be able to observe, and they make it bad for frontline pastors. There's a lot of good pastors, really is a lot of good pastors out here that are on the front line doing everything they can in their belief of what God has called them to do. Wow. But the church is not going to grow. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I appreciate pastors like you, and I appreciate you for even what you're doing here in Mercy Drive. I'm from Pine Hills area, but I knew people here growing up. I knew people that lived around here. My dad, when he had his church, we used to drive over here, pick people up to go to church, and so I'm familiar with this area. And the fact that you're here and you're thriving here, you're working here, I appreciate it. And I just want to say, coming from that area, coming up from in a community like this, I appreciate what you're doing here. And however, you know, we can help or be assistance to that, I would like to do that and just help out in that regard. So,
but Daniel, let me tell you, I won't hesitate to call on you.
Yeah, call me.
Well, I mean, seriously, I have no shame. That's not a quality.
It's work.
Yeah, I mean,
it's work, so I understand that.
Yeah, so I know what your skills are, and you know, like I told you before, we deal with a company, but there are things that I really want to do that I know that only another black man would understand what I'm trying to get at.
Right.
So, you know, this has been good. Thank you.
No, yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you
I
for the
appreciate
honor
it.
and the pleasure.
Let the people know how to get in touch with you, where they can go to connect with you, Hope Church
Okay.
and the ministry.
Well, you can get in touch with us at Heart of Mercy Community Church, which is our Sunday activity, and we have a Bible study on Wednesday. Or you can come by here during the day, especially if you have children. We have a school in the back, which is called Little Achievers Early Learning Academy. And I said that right. My daughter's sitting back there looking at me. She's the director of it, and she gave me the thumbs up, which means I got it right. Or you can be involved in Mercy Drive Movement. The Mercy Drive Movement is a movement where we are working to dedicate ourselves to the community and seeing our community be able to determine its own destiny. And this is one of the things that I see, one of the things I pray for, and one of the things I work towards. I believe that Mercy Drive can be the same Mercy Drive that is a resemblance to Edgewater Drive, as well as Park Avenue, where we can have our own commercial area, along with the houses, the outdoor cafes, restaurants, coffee shops, and we do drink coffee. So if we can get a Starbucks or something like that here, that would be wonderful. But I just think that whatever it is that any of the parks, Baldwin Park, Winter Park, Thornton Park, Lorna Doone Park, and all the rest of them places, that we can have the same thing. We just want a level playing field. So if you have any ideas that can help us, you're more than invited. If you want to serve, you're more than welcome to come and join us as we move forward in doing what God called us to do. Heart of Mercy Community Church, Mercy Drive Ministry, Mercy Drive Movement. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So appreciate you guys for tuning in, checking out this episode of The Sit Down. Yeah, subscribe to the channel, but like always, I know you subscribe because you're not gonna watch my stuff and not be a subscriber. That would just not be cool. Give this video a thumbs up. Hit us up in the comments, let us know what you think about it. And who else you wanna see on The Sit Down, let us know. And if you wanna be on The Sit Down, contact us at contactthesitdown@gmail.com. And yeah, check out the merch too. Shop The Sit Down. Deuces, appreciate it. That's it.